I am your host, Jennifer Bloom, and I am joined by my guests, Jennifer and Stephanie PageWise. And we have been talking all things communication and relationship, and it's been such a luscious, lovely conversation. So before we step into the next part of the show here, would you mind sharing, of course, there's information in the show notes, but would you mind sharing the best way for somebody to learn more about the work that you're doing in the world?
Absolutely. We have a website, which is www.enchantedAwakenings.love. And that would give you all of our information, including our Facebook group that you can join. We have a private Facebook group. But if you want to go just directly to Facebook, we are also found at Enchanted Awakenings, your home for awakened relationships.
Love it. I love it. Fantastic. So listeners, I'm going to really encourage you to check out what they have because this has just been, like I said, it's been a really luscious conversation, and you can really feel the potential in so many different relationships when we take you both are just such a loving, kind, gentle presence, and bringing that peace into the middle of a relationship. It feels like there's so much opportunity for flourishing and expansion. So I'm going to encourage everyone to check out your resources, please. All right. So the second half of the show is really designed to take some of what we've talked about, and we're not that we were talking about theory necessarily. There's all very tangible things for people to connect with in what we've already shared, but to bring a little bit of information about how we work with people. So we're we'll take turns here. I'll go first, and then you guys will get to go second. And the tool that I use is a paradigm called soul language, and soul language puts tangibility to soul. And what's really amazing is that we have each of our own individual languages. That's part of our makeup. And then we also individually brought additional resources for every relationship that we're in. So for example, I could actually identify the relationship languages that you brought together as a couple to support you in your relationship. But because this is a show about money, well, it's not all about money, but that's one of the foundational topics here, is I identified a language for each of you. So you each have 3 different languages that support your individual relationship with money. Now, as you can probably guess, that means you each have different styles with money. I'm probably not the first person to tell you that. We haven't talked before about how you two handle that conversation. But what's really interesting in relationship is if I have a very grounded strategic view of money and my partner has more of an airy-fairy magical way about money, that's going to clash a little bit. And we're going to need to learn how to speak each other's language, so to speak. So when we can put some tangibility to it, then we can go, oh, I get it. You tend to come with strategy and I tend to come with magic. Okay, how can we combine that? So I'd like to share there are 3 categories of language. So what I identified was the energetic how. The language is for each of you. So this language is about how you energetically are in relationship with money. Okay, same category for each of you, but you have 2 different languages. And I'm going to see A, how it resonates with you, and B, let's talk a little bit about how it might create a challenge or create success. Okay.
Awesome.
So let's see, who wants to go first?
Jennifer does.
Jennifer does. Okay. All right. So Jennifer, let me make sure I have the right one for the right person. Okay. So your language is called Teacher of Integrity. So let me read you the description here about that. So this sacred partnership money language's skill with money is to embody the purpose of money, which is for us to play together as souls. This language recognizes when money is being used for a different purpose and helps bring it back to the light. Your how of making money is to honor money's role in your life and celebrate all the ways you can play with other souls with money. Now, one of the special talents of this particular language is that you hold any transaction involving money in the highest honor and integrity. If you're disconnected from this language, one of the things that you might notice is that you can create a high bar to meet before you will accept money.
Okay.
So how does that resonate?
I think that resonates pretty well with me. You know, I do really honor that exchange and what that exchange means. And so, yeah, I think that resonates pretty well. What do you think?
I think it's very interesting because, and I can't wait to hear what mine is. You know, like once when we have a certain amount in the bank, Jennifer's like ready to like use it for fun things like booking a cruise or going on vacation or buying really cool gifts, things like that. And she loves to give gifts. Doesn't like to receive them very much, but loves to give them. And so the abundance that we have, she is ready to do those things. So absolutely. But also that she sets a high bar to receive money. You know, obviously we're coaches and, you know, I think she holds herself to such a high standard in accepting coaching clients that I think it could be a barrier to actually being able to receive coaching clients. That's interesting because that keeps coming up.
Interesting.
All right. So let's talk about you, Stephanie.
Oh, goodness. She says nervously.
No. None of this is bad, right?
I'm kidding.
Right. I know. Yeah. It's all fodder for the conversation, right?
Absolutely.
Right. We get to know that self better. So for you, it's called nurturer. This sacred partnership language gives you the skill of nurturing money into being. This language guides you to understand that it is easier to create from a full well rather than an empty tank. Nourishing and filling yourself brings an abundance of nourishment from the divine. Money is one way of allowing nourishment. Filling your tank and being an example to others or literally helping others fill their tanks is your how of making money. So when you're in connection, something that you might notice is that you easily nurture your relationship with money, that you intuitively know that money is simply one way to create nurturing. On the flip side, if you're disconnected from that language or this piece of yourself, you might refuse to receive money for giving nurturing or not allowing money into your life until everyone around you has enough money.
What do you think?
That's interesting because, you know, I'm always wanting to, it's a little harder to see in the money situation, but certainly, you know, when I talk to people and I coach them, it's very much talking about the abundance and making sure that they're getting everything that they need and the people around me getting everything that they need. And often the reticence to let it come into me as well, but also knowing that it's just one piece of abundance, that I get so much from what I give and what I teach, and that, you know, I don't always need to be reimbursed financially for it. I get so much all the time anyway.
Right. So, you know, one of the ways, you know, in coming together, right, if you, and there's nothing wrong, obviously, with being filled with by your work, right? But of course, we all live on a 3D planet and there are things to do like cruises, right?
Exactly.
Or paying the mortgage.
Or heck, yes, we got to pay the mortgage, right? But so as you can see, you know, if you've got one person who is, okay, let's fill the cup, let's really, you know, let's allow money to fill the cup, and we've got one person saying, hey, wait a minute, right, we need to have a little bit of, let's make sure there's enough integrity, let's make sure there's a bar, right, you know, they can end up at cross purposes. So when we know some of these pieces of information, and this is just like one little sliver of information, but when we know that, it makes it easier to have that conversation. It makes it easier to, I think it makes it easier. And what I've witnessed is it makes it easier to have compassion for somebody else and what their what their preferred mode is.
Mhm.
And then that way you can create a system for working with this very 3D tangible resource in a way that supports both people in the relationship.
Mhm.
All right, so that is my turn. And now I will yield the floor to the two of you and would love to experience or play along as you share what you would like to share.
Awesome. So one of the things that we love to look at is patterns in relationships. So we all show up in different ways in relationships, and it's often based on things that we've experienced in our past, and those things come to play in the relationships that we have now. So what I'd love if you would be willing to talk about it, it's like, is there like a hot button issue between you and your husband that you're willing to talk about? That definitely kind of creates some, I can see on your face that it's already there. So
Yes. So hot button issue. Um, I tend to be the person who wants to get it done. I'm, I'm the one with the list.
mhm,
Right, I'm the one that says that we did it, we got to kick the house this way, but the yard this way, and he's somebody who's much more of, hey, we need to have some fun. We need, right? So that does tend to be a hot button issue at a
mhm,
certain point. It's like we can go along for a while, and then it's like we reach a point, and then all of a sudden it ignites.
mhm.
It ignites.
So as you're sitting here thinking about it, what emotions are coming up for you? What other thoughts are coming up for you?
Yes. So I can feel like frustration in my gut,
Mhm.
right? I can feel a certain amount of what's the word I'm looking for? It's not necessarily pride, but it's like there's a right way to do something.
Mhm.
Right. And I can share more. I know a little bit about where that comes from in my family, but like
Right.
there's like pride of ownership. Like, why can't you understand that there's just these things that need to happen? So yeah, so there's just this, yeah, frustration and just a misunderstood. Like I just don't get it. Right? It's like this. I
Right.
just don't get it.
Right.
So would you say that that's a boundary for you?
I think it is both a boundary and it is a miss I'm not going to call it a wound, but I think it's an amplification. So for example, at my granddad's funeral, my father's funeral, they told the story about in the rental house how he, this wasn't something they owned, this wasn't something they were going to get any money out of, but he made sure when the window needed to be replaced that he did it, and he stained it, and he got it all right, because that's what you do. You
Mhm.
don't ask for help. You take care of what you leave something better than what you found it, right? So there's this real sense of doing it right, which I think maybe gets inflated sometimes.
Mhm.
So I think it's a both and. It's a
Mhm.
boundary, and it's something that I've had to really look at as to, wait, is this really mine? Or is
Right.
this a story that's been passed down and I have inflated it?
Mhm.
Right. So has it become part of your conditioning from your childhood, your generation, something generational? And is that truly your authentic self?
Right.
So what comes to my mind, and I kind of lost the question, but how does having everything done right allow you to feel safe?
Because then everybody will love me.
Aha!
Right.
There it
Everybody
is.
will love me if
Right.
I do it right.
They
Yep,
won't have any opportunity to criticize me.
that's right.
They can't poke holes at me.
Nope.
So because I feel worried about what other people think of me, and I need them to reinforce my goodness.
And my lovability.
Right.
So I do these things so that I can so I can feel lovable.
Exactly. Yep. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And when your partner kind of shoves, poo-poos it and is like, oh, come on, let's just go have some fun. This can wait.
Right.
It scares the bejesus out of you.
It does. It does. I mean, and we take care of our home, but there are times where I'm like, okay, the grass really needs to get cut. I physically can't do it. We look like Boo Radley. And he's like, who cares what the neighbors think? And I'm like, oh my God, that's like the worst thing you could say to me.
Right.
I
do care.
I can.
Right, I care.
Right. Right. But it's not surface level caring.
No, it isn't.
It really goes deep.
Deep.
It does.
Deep.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
And so what the work then is to be more and more in your authentic self so that you know who you are.
And that you're lovable,
no matter what,
whether your lawn is mowed or it's not,
or whether you're laying in it naked.
And it's tall enough that it covers everything, right? Yeah.
Right.
Bonus. Bonus.
See, there's a reason to let it grow.
Okay, so all right, so my work, and it clearly is something that I have been working on it, but not. I can tell that I mean there's definite roots in there though, because I can, like, the tears are just like right back here.
I could see them.
Right,
Yeah.
just about ready. So my work is to remember what I tell everybody else, which is you are a soul walking around on this planet. Therefore, you are worthy and deserving.
Exactly.
And lovable.
And you are love. You're literally right.
You are
all love.
Yeah, you're all love. So that's my work.
Yeah.
What's his job?
Well, his job is to hear you.
Yeah.
And one of the ways there's another tool that we would teach you, which is to own the triggers and to share them with him in the exact moment that they come up, so that you know and he knows that this is a trigger. We just hit it. And so let's just hold space for the trigger. And this is something that Jennifer and I developed in our work together. Like, as we had a very long breakup. We had a 2-year separation. And when we started thinking about coming back together, this was something that we started doing, is because there were triggers from chapter 1 of our relationship. And so I started doing it because I started getting triggered, and I was just like, oh, that was a trigger. And I would express what it was, because my history, and even now, is I'll just brush it under the rug, handle it myself. And then I never get solved.
And then you get resentments.
Right. So his job is to be willing to go through this with you and to hear your triggers and to help you hold space for them
so they can heal.
And then my job is to do the healing work so that it's no longer a trigger.
Right.
And to express it when it is.
And
so then he knows.
Yeah. Express it. So again, so it doesn't get swept under the rug, and then it comes out sideways, in a month or whatever. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you're snapping at him for something, and he's looking at you like, what did I do?
Yeah, exactly.
He has no idea the thoughts that are going on in your head and the triggers that keep happening and happening and happening that you sweep under the rug and you don't express. And then, as you said, it comes out sideways, and he looks at you like you have 2 heads.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. And we didn't get to, we talked about a little bit about this at the beginning in the first half of the show, but communication, this sounds like such an obvious thing for me to say, but you gotta talk, right? You have to share what's happening. And, each partner is going to have a different level of comfort. We got to create that safe space, but some of us, I mean, I'm a talker. I'm happy to, and I'm a processor. I'm happy to process. I'm more than right. And he isn't as much. I mean, he's willing, and if he weren't
Right.
willing, we wouldn't be together anymore.
Right.
But
He may be more like me that he internally processes.
Very much so. Yes. He does a lot of internal processing, and I'm like, no, I got to talk it out. And actually, honestly, that's one of those key things that we had to learn in our relationship, was that it wasn't that he wasn't paying attention. It wasn't that he wasn't dealing with issues. He was just doing it differently than how I was. But again, we still have to be able to come together and in some way, shape, or form, communicate if it's a trigger and when it's happening in that moment, and how we want to move through it.
Yeah. And that's one of the other big things that we teach is communication skills, because again, as children, if we're told we're to be seen and not heard, are we learning how to communicate? No.
And we certainly we're never allowed to speak when we were hurting. I mean, we could go on and on about this. You've gotten a quick little segment of how we work, but I mean, there's so much to this. And, when we take couples through this, typically the way that we work, if we're working with a couple, is we do individual work with each of them as well as joint work. So we have a 12-week program. So there are 12 couple sessions weekly and 6 each individual sessions.
That's fantastic.
Right.
That is fantastic.
So we can help you understand your triggers, learn the language to use. So then when you come together, there's not this butting of heads and conflict.
Yeah. And we can really coach you because we know what's happening on both sides. And we can say, hey, person A, I know that's a trigger. Can you please tell person B what that trigger is? And so we give them an opportunity in session to actually practice the skill of owning their trigger. It's not the other person's fault that they got triggered. It's their issue. It's my issue that I have a trigger. And I need to be able to speak fluently about it and shine the light on it so that the shadow goes away.
Because I can't know all of her triggers.
Right. So you're not teaching people that they have to be mind readers.
No.
No.
Right, exactly. And I think that we get lost in that, don't we? We think that we think that the other person should, and there's a terrible word in a relationship, right?
Of course.
Should be able to just know. And they don't. They can be the most loving, compassionate person, and maybe they can start to recognize what a trigger looks like, but it's not their responsibility to be able to say that. Oh.
No.
Well, my goodness, there's so many more directions we could go. I really, truly appreciate your time today and the wisdom that you shared and the tools and all of the theories and concepts. This has really been an amazing conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you too. And I love learning about, our
money relationship. That's so cool.
Yeah. I would love it if you would send us.
Oh, of course. Yes, I will
definitely send it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send you the whole thing. One quick question. Do you work exclusively in the LGBTQ community, or do you work across the board with everybody?
We work with anyone who is open enough to do this work for themselves, knowing that we are lesbians. And so it's allies. It's the queer community and its allies.
Fantastic. Right. Okay. Good to know. Because
So if you resonate with us, we will work with you.
We're working with,
we have numerous couples.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. You're going on my resource list because I work again across the spectrum too. It doesn't matter to me.
Right.
But so it's wonderful to have resources. Okay. So we need to wrap up here again. Thank you. I really, truly from my heart. Thank you. And thank you all for being here, listening to Soul Wisdom Abundance. I am Jennifer Bloom. We are here on the first and the third Fridays of each month. And until we meet again, I want to just wish everyone prosperous blessings.
Thank you for listening to Soul Wisdom Abundance with Jennifer Bloom, creating wealth from spiritual health on transformationtalkradio.com. To learn more about Jennifer Bloom or listen to past shows, visit jenniferbloom.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on any of your favorite podcasting outlets. Simply search Soul Wisdom Abundance with Jennifer Bloom.